Hi everyone. Today I'd like to show you two mate in 3 puzzles and one bonus mate in 2 puzzle. Usually when I'm making these videos I do 3 mate in 3 puzzles, but here the second puzzle is so special that it basically counts for 2 puzzles. Let's get to the first puzzle. This one's not that hard, it's more like an appetizer. I'll give some time to pause the video and try to figure it out. Okay, welcome back. Now, if you thought of e4, this doesn't quite work because yes, you're covering a lot of squares, but black still has one square, which is g5, and this is a very important square because you don't want to let your king escape to this diagonal, because if they do, they get a lot of new squares they can escape to. It's not something you want to do. So the move you had to find was d4, and this is much better because it's covering the g5 square. Now the king only has two moves. You can either go g4 or h5. Let's see what happens if the king goes to g4. Now you get e4 with the discovered check from the queen to the black king. Now both the bishop and the queen are completely slicing to the king, and the pawn is covering the square. So king only has a single move, legal move that he can make, which is h4, and now you deliver checkmate at g3. That's what happens if the king goes to g4. There's one more the king could do. King could go to h5 too. But how do you checkmate the king now? You go queen to d3, again covering the square from the diagonal to the king. So now king has two moves again, because this bishop is preventing it from escaping, which are h4 or g4, and both of these lead to the exact same checkmate, which is queen to h3 checkmate. That was the first puzzle. I know it's a pretty easy one, but the second one is very difficult to find, because if you do it, I'm sure you're a high rated player. This is also mate in 3 puzzle. You should find how to mate the black king in 3 moves. I'll give you some time to pause the video and try to figure it out. Okay, welcome back. Now if you actually try to figure out how this puzzle works, you have noticed that the black king has no moves. The bishop is covering the h2 square, and the knight is covering the g1 square, and the king is covering this g2 square. Black king can't move anywhere. So all you have to do is give one check to your opponent from any piece that can't be captured. There's a lot of checks, it looks like, but every check possible in this position can be captured by some black piece. So if you thought of just rook captures on b8, and then if your opponent captures, you just deliver checkmate, it's a good idea, but it doesn't work because opponent doesn't have to capture. Opponent goes for something like knight to c3, and now the bishop cannot capture this piece because it has this very important role of covering the h2 square. The knight can't capture it because it also has this role of covering the g2 square, g1 square. So if any of those pieces captured, you won't be mating in 3, unfortunately. So this is just a dead end. So the correct move can't be rook captures on b8. Some of you might have seen bishop captures on d5. What about this move? But now and the reason you might have thought of this is because all the king has to do is move to f2, and that's checkmate. Black king has no squares, but black has some counterplay. Black could go rook captures on b5, and now you can't just move the king, because then you lose the bishop. That's a giving check, so you can't do that. So now the move you have to do is rook captures on a7, because now if the black just captures the bishop, you deliver checkmate. So and that'll be a mate in 3. So black won't just do this. Black will go rook to b4, and now you can try delivering checkmate, but black can block, and this is technically a mate in 4, not a mate in 3. So this is not the solution to the puzzle. Now some of you might have tried to combine both ideas, which is not a bad way of thinking and a bad way to do puzzles. I'll show you what some of you might have thought. Some of you might have thought your opponent might go knight to c3, which I might have forgot to mention, but it also covers the b1 square, so the rook can't deliver checkmate. Now some of you might have found bishop to d5. Now what's the idea in this move? Now if black captures the bishop, they relinquish control of the b1 square, so rook can just deliver checkmate. And if the black captures the knight, then we just move the king, and that's checkmate. So none of these are possible. The black knight can't capture anything, because if the black knight moves at all, it's just checkmate. But black still has something they can do. They can capture on e7, because now if you decide to go for something like king to f2, the black knight can just block, and then you'll never mate in 3. But if you decide to go for something better like rook to h8 check, once again the black rook can block, and this is once again a mate in 4. It's not the solution. There's one and only one solution, which is knight to b7, and this move is can be associated with a term called a plashuta. Here, whatever piece black captures the knight with runs into huge problems, as whatever piece captures the black knight will block the control of the other piece. Because now if you notice, the black rook on the b file was covering the b1 square, and the rook on in the a file was covering the h7 square. So now if you don't do anything, like you just decide to capture the rook, you just run it checkmate. So that's not an option. But what if you decide to capture? If you decide to capture with the b rook, you get rook to h7 check, rook captures, and rook to b1 checkmate. It's the exact same case the other rook captures. It's just the opposite checkmate, because now you go like this. And now why does this work? It works because after any one rook captures the free knight, this rook is the only rook covering both the h7 and the b1 squares. So you just have to remove it from defending one of the checkmates, and you can deliver checkmate on the other move. So that's how plashuta works. This is a very interesting puzzle. Let's move on to the third puzzle. I told you this is a bonus puzzle because it's a mate in 2 plus this, but it's very hard still. The first move you have to find is very hard to find. You need to work a lot to get this. So I'll give some time to pause the video and try to figure out a solution. Okay, welcome back. The move you had to find was queen to d3. A lot of you might have thought of queen to e3. Give me a sec. Queen to e3. This doesn't quite work because of the reasons I'll show you. I'll show you how the checkmate is. Queen to d3. The king has 4 moves. I can either move e6 or f6. Could go g8 or e8. These are the 4 moves the king can do. Let's see what happens if you go to e6. Now you promote to a bishop. The pawn promotes to a bishop. And this is, you can promote to a queen if you want to, but this is just much more impressive to look at and much more nice to look at. Because now if you notice, this is the reason the queen had to be on d3, because it covers all these squares for the king, and the bishop covers these squares, the other bishop covers these squares, knight covers the square. The queen also covers this diagonal. So it is checkmate for unfortunately for black, but black is lost anyway. This is just the fastest way to checkmate. But king doesn't have to go to e6. King could go to f6. What now? It's still bishop to g8 checkmate, because this knight is protected, and you get discovery from the dark squared bishop, and it's just slicing through the entire king. There are 3 pieces slicing through the king, so it's just checkmate. King has 2 more moves that they could do. What if the king moves to e8? Now you promote to a queen. You can't promote to a rook because you need to cover the square from the queen because of the queen. And this is just a checkmate for black because the knight covers the e7 square. There's one last move the king could make. What if the king's just like, screw it, screw all these promotions, I'm just gonna go g8, king to g8. And it looks like the king can't be mated in one move because you need to cover this square, and give check to the king. How do you do that in just one move? There is a move. That's knight to e7 check, because now it opens up a discovery from the bishop, the queen, and gives check to the king. So that was the mate in 2 puzzle. This one's probably the most interesting of these mate in 3 puzzles I've made. It is a lot of fun making this video, and it is very hard to figure out these puzzles, I'm sure. So hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching. Bye.